The Iliad by Homer, Book 1. Rage. Sing, goddess, Achilles' rage, black and murderous, that cost the Greeks incalculable pain, pitched countless souls of heroes into Hades' dark, and left their bodies to rot as feasts for dogs and birds, as Zeus' will was done. Begin with the clash between Agamemnon, the Greek warlord, and godlike Achilles. Which of the immortals set these two at each other's throats? Apollo, Zeus' son, and Leto's, offended by the warlord. Agamemnon had dishonored Chryseis, Apollo's priest, so the god struck the Greek camp with plague, and the soldiers were dying of it. Chryseis had come to the Greek beachhead camp, hauling a fortune for his daughter's ransom. Displaying Apollo's sacral ribbons on a golden staff, he made a formal plea to the entire Greek army, but especially the commanders, Atreus' two sons. Sons of Atreus and Greek heroes all, may the gods on Olympus grant you plunder of Priam's city, and a safe return home. But give me my daughter back, and accept this ransom out of respect for Zeus' son, Lord Apollo, who deals death from afar. A murmur rippled through the ranks. Respect the priest, and take the ransom. But Agamemnon was not pleased, and dismissed Chryseis with a rough speech. Don't let me ever catch you, old man, by these ships again, skulking around now or sneaking back later. The gods, staff, and ribbons won't save you next time. The girl is mine, and she'll be an old woman in Argos before I let her go, working the loom in my house, and coming to my bed, far from her homeland. Now clear out of here before you make me angry. The old man was afraid, and did as he was told. He walked in silence along the whispering surf line, and when he had gone some distance, the priest prayed to Lord Apollo, son of silken-haired Leto. Hear me, Silver Bow, protector of Chryse, lord of holy Scylla, master of Tenedos, and Sminthean god of plague. If ever I've built a temple that pleased you, or burnt fat thigh bones of bulls and goats, grant me this prayer. Let the Danaans pay for my tears with your arrows. Apollo heard his prayer and descended Olympus's crags, pulsing with fury, bow slung over one shoulder, the arrows rattling in their case on his back. As the angry god moved like night down the mountain, he settled near the ships and let loose an arrow. Reverberation from his silver bow hung in the air. He picked off the pack animals first, and the lean hounds, but then aimed his needle-tipped arrows at the men, and shot until the death fires crowded the beaches. 9 days the gods' arrows rained death on the camp. On the 10th day, Achilles called an assembly. Hera, the white-armed goddess, planted the thought in him, because she cared for the Greeks, and it pained her to see them dying. When the troops had all mustered, up stood the great runner Achilles, and said, Well, Agamemnon, it looks as if we'd better give up and sail home, assuming any of us are left alive, if we have to fight both the war and this plague. But why not consult some prophet or priest, or a dream interpreter, since dreams too come from Zeus? Who could tell us why Apollo is so angry? If it's for a vow or a sacrifice, he holds us at fault. Maybe he'd be willing to lift this plague from us, if he favored the smoke from lambs and prime goats. Achilles had his say and sat down. Then up rose Calchas, son of Thestor, bird reader supreme, who knew what is, what will be, and what has been. He had guided the Greek ships to Troy, through the prophetic power Apollo had given him, and he spoke out now. Achilles, beloved son of Zeus, You want me to tell you about the rage of Lord Apollo, the arch-destroyer, and I will tell you, but you have to promise me and swear you will support me and protect me in word and deed. I have a feeling I might offend a person of some authority among the Greeks, and you know how it is when a king is angry with an underling. He might swallow his temper for a day, but he holds it in his heart until later, and it all comes out. Will you guarantee my security?" Achilles, the great runner, responded, "Don't worry. Prophesy to the best of your knowledge. I swear by Apollo, to whom you pray when you reveal the gods' secrets to the Greeks, Calchas, that while I live and look upon this earth, no one will lay a hand on you here beside these hollow ships. No, not even Agamemnon, who boasts he is the best of the Achaeans." And Calchas, the perfect prophet, taking courage. The god finds no fault with vow or sacrifice. It is for his priest, whom Agamemnon dishonored and would not allow to ransom his daughter, that Apollo deals and will deal death from afar. He will not lift this foul plague from the Greeks until we return the dancing-eyed girl to her father, unransomed, unbought, and make formal sacrifice on Chryseis. Only then might we appease the god. He finished speaking and sat down. Then up rose Atreus' son, the warlord Agamemnon, furious, anger like twin black thunderheads seething in his lung, and his eyes flickered with fire. And he looked Calchas up and down, and said, "You damn soothsayer! You've never given me a good omen yet. You take some kind of perverse pleasure in prophesying doom, don't you? Not a single favorable omen ever. Nothing good ever happens. And now you stand here uttering oracles before the Greeks, telling us that your great ballistic god is giving us all this trouble, because I was unwilling to accept the ransom for Chryseis' daughter, but preferred instead to keep her in my tent. And why shouldn't I? I like her better than my wife, Clytemnestra. She's no worse than her when it comes to looks, body, mind, or ability. Still, I'll give her back, if that's what's best. I don't want to see the army destroyed like this, but I want another prize ready for me right away. I'm not going to be the only Greek without a prize. It wouldn't be right, and you all see where mine is going. And Achilles, strong, swift, and godlike. And where do you think, son of Atreus, you greedy glory hound, the magnanimous Greeks are going to get another prize for you? Do you think we have some kind of stockpile in reserve? Every town in the area has been sacked, and the stuff all divided. You want the men to count it all back and redistribute it? All right, you give the girl back to the god. The army will repay you 3 and 4 times over, when and if Zeus allows us to rip Troy down to its foundations." The warlord Agamemnon responded, "You may be a good man in a fight, Achilles, and look like a god, but don't try to put one over on me. It won't work. So while you have your prize, you want me to sit tight and do without? Give the girl back, just like that? Now maybe, if the army, in a generous spirit, voted me some suitable prize of their own choice, something fair, but if it doesn't, I'll just go take something myself, your prize perhaps, or Ajax's, or Odysseus's, and whoever she belongs to, it'll stick in his throat. But we can think about that later. Right now, we launch a black ship on the bright salt water, get a crew aboard, load on 100 bulls, and have Chryseis board her too, my girl with her lovely cheeks. And we'll want a good man for captain, Ajax, or Idomeneus, or godlike Odysseus, or maybe you, son of Peleus, our most formidable hero, to offer sacrifice and appease the arch-destroyer for us." Achilles looked him up and down and said, "You shameless, profiteering excuse for a commander! How are you going to get any Greek warrior to follow you into battle again? You know, I don't have any quarrel with the Trojans. They didn't do anything to me to make me come over here and fight. Didn't run off my cattle or horses, or ruin my farmland back home in Phthia. Not with all the shadowy mountains and moaning seas between. It's for you, dog-face, for your precious pleasure, and Menelaus's honor, that we came here, and a fact you don't have the decency even to mention. And now you're threatening to take away the prize that I sweated for and the Greeks gave me. I never get a prize equal to yours when the army captures one of the Trojan strongholds. No, I do all the dirty work with my own hands. And when the battle's over and we divide the loot, you get the lion's share, and I go back to the ships with some pitiful little thing, so worn out from fighting I don't have the strength left even to complain. Well, I'm going back to Phthia now, far from and far better to head home with my curved ships than stay here, unhonored myself, and piling up a fortune for you. The warlord Agamemnon responded, Go ahead and desert, if that's what you want. I'm not going to beg you to stay. There are plenty of others who will honor me, not least of all Zeus the counselor. To me, you're the most hateful king under heaven, a born troublemaker. You actually like fighting and war. If you're all that strong, it's just a gift from some god. So why don't you go home with your ships and lord it over your precious myrmidons? I couldn't care less about you or your famous temper. But I'll tell you this. Since Phoebus Apollo is taking away my Chryseis, whom I'm sending back aboard ship with my friends, I'm coming to your hut and taking Briseis, your own beautiful prize, so that you will see just how much stronger I am than you, and the next person will wince at the thought of opposing me as an equal. Achilles' chest was a rough knot of pain, twisting around his heart. Should he draw the sharp sword that hung by his thigh, scatter the ranks and gut Agamemnon, or control his temper, repress his rage? He was mulling it over, itching the great sword from its sheath, when out of the blue Athena came, sent by the white-armed goddess Hera, who loved and watched over both men. She stood behind Achilles and grabbed his sandy hair. Visible only to him, not another soul saw her. Awestruck, Achilles turned around, recognizing Pallas Athena at once. It was her eyes, and words flew from his mouth like winging birds. Daughter of Zeus, why have you come here? To see Agamemnon's arrogance, no doubt. I'll tell you where I place my bets, goddess. Sudden death for this outrageous behavior. Athena's eyes glared through the sea's salt haze. I came to see if I could check this temper of yours, sent from heaven by the white-armed goddess Hera, who loves and watches over both of you men. Now come on, drop this quarrel, and don't draw your sword. Tell him off instead, and I'll tell you, Achilles, how things will be. You're going to get 3 times as many magnificent gifts because of his arrogance. Just listen to us, and be patient. Achilles, the great runner, responded, When you two speak, goddess, a man has to listen, no matter how angry. It's better that way. Obey the gods, and they hear you when you pray. With that, he ground his heavy hand onto the silver hilt, and pushed the great sword back into its sheath. Athena's speech had been well-timed. She was on her way to Olympus by now, to the halls of Zeus and the other immortals, while Achilles tore into Agamemnon again. You bloated drunk, with a dog's eyes and a rabbit's heart. You've never had the guts to buckle on armor in battle, or come out with the best fighting Greeks on any campaign. Afraid to look death in the eye, Agamemnon. It's far more profitable to hang back in the army's rear, isn't it? Confiscating prizes from any Greek who talks back, and bleeding your people dry. That's not a real man under your command, or this latest atrocity would be your last, son of Atreus. Now get this straight. I swear a formal oath, by this scepter, which will never sprout leaf, or branch again, since it was cut from its stock in the mountains, which will bloom no more, now that bronze has pared off leaf and bark, and which now the sons of the Greeks hold in their hands, at council, upholding Zeus's laws. By this scepter I swear, when every last Greek desperately misses Achilles, your remorse won't do any good then, when Hector the man-killer swats you down like flies, and you will eat your heart out, because you failed to honor the best Greek of all. Those were his words, and he slammed the scepter down, studded with gold, to the ground, and sat down. Opposite him, Agamemnon fumed. Then Nestor stood up, sweet-worded Nestor, the orator from Pylos, with a voice high-toned and liquid as honey. He had seen 2 generations of men pass away in sandy Pylos, and was now king in the 3rd. He was full of goodwill in the speech he made. It's a sad day for Greece, a sad day. Priam and Priam's sons would be happy indeed, and the rest of the Trojans too, glad in their hearts, if they learned all this about you 2 fighting, our 2 best men in council and in battle. Now you listen to me, both of you. You are both younger than I am, and I've associated with men better than you, and they didn't treat me lightly. I've never seen men like those, and never will, the likes of Pirithous and Dryas, a shepherd to his people, Caeneus and Exadius and godlike Polyphemus, and Aegeus's son Theseus, who could have passed for a god, the strongest men who ever lived on earth, the strongest, and they fought with the strongest, with wild things from the mountains, and beat the daylights out of them. I was their companion, although I came from Pylos, from the ends of the earth. They sent for me themselves, and I held my own fighting with them. You couldn't find a mortal on earth who could fight with them now, and when I talked in council, they took my advice. So should you too now. Taking advice is a good thing. Agamemnon, for all your nobility, don't take his girl. Leave her be. The army originally gave her to him as a prize. Nor should you, son of Peleus, want to lock horns with a king. A scepter-holding king has honor beyond the rest of men, glory and power given by Zeus himself. You are stronger, and it is a goddess who bore you, but he is more powerful, since he rules over more. Son of Atreus, cease your anger, and I appeal personally to Achilles to control his temper, since he is, for all Greeks, a mighty bulwark in this evil war. And Agamemnon, the warlord, Yes, old man, everything you've said is absolutely right, but this man wants to be ahead of everyone else. He wants to rule everyone, give orders to everyone, lord it over everyone, and he's not going to get away with it. If the gods eternal made him a spearman, does that mean they gave him permission to be insolent as well? And Achilles breaking in on him. Ha! And think of the names people would call me if I bowed and scraped every time you opened your mouth. Try that on somebody else, but not on me. I'll tell you this. You can stick it in your gut. I'm not going to put up a fight on account of the girl. You, all of you, gave her, and you can all take her back. But anything else of mine in my black sailing ship, you keep your goddamn hands off, you hear? Try it. Let everybody here see how fast your black blood boils up around my spear. So it was a standoff, their battle of words, and the assembly beside the Greek ships dissolved. Achilles went back to the huts by his ships, with Patroclus and his men. Achilles had a fast ship hulled down to the sea, picked 20 oarsmen, loaded on 100 bulls due to the god, and had Chryseis' daughter, his fair-cheeked girl, go aboard also. Odysseus captained, and when they were all on board, the ship headed out to sea. On shore, Agamemnon offered a purification. The troops scrubbed down and poured the filth into the sea. Then they sacrificed to Apollo oxen and goats by the hundreds on the barren shore. The smoky savor swirled up to the sky. That was the order of the day, but Agamemnon did not forget his spiteful threat against Achilles. He summoned Talthybius and Eurybates, faithful retainers who served as his heralds. "Go to the hut of Achilles, son of Peleus. Bring back the girl, fair-cheeked Briseis. If he won't give her up, I'll come myself, with my men, and take her, and freeze his heart cold." It was not the sort of mission a herald would relish. The pair trailed along the barren seashore, until they come to the Myrmidons' ships and encampment. They found Achilles sitting outside his hut. Beside his black ship, he was not glad to see them. They stood respectfully silent, in awe of this king, and it was Achilles who was moved to address them first. "Welcome, heralds, the gods' messengers and men's. Come closer, you're not to blame. Agamemnon is. Who sent you here for the girl, Briseis? Patroclus, bring the girl out and give her to these gentlemen. You two are witnesses before the blessed gods, before mortal men and that hard-hearted king. If ever I'm needed to protect the others from being hacked to bits, his mind is murky with anger, and he doesn't have the sense to look ahead and behind to see how the Greeks might defend their ships." Thus, Achilles, Patroclus obeyed his beloved friend, and brought Briseis, cheeks flushed, out of the tent, and gave her to the heralds, who led her away. She went unwillingly. Then Achilles, in tears, withdrew from his friends and sat down far away, on the foaming white seashore, staring out into the endless sea. Stretching out his hands, he prayed over and over to his beloved mother. "Mother, since you bore me for a short life only, Olympian Zeus was supposed to grant me honor. Well, he hasn't given me any at all. Agamemnon has taken away my prize and dishonored me." His voice, choked with tears, was heard by his mother as she sat in the sea depths beside her old father. She rose up from the white-capped sea like a mist, and, settling herself beside her weeping child, she stroked him with her hand and talked to him. "Why are you crying, son? What's wrong? Don't keep it inside. Tell me so we'll both know." And Achilles, with a deep groan, "You already know. Why do I have to tell you? We went after Thebes, Eetion's sacred town, sacked it, and brought the plunder back here. The army divided everything up and chose for Agamemnon fair-cheeked Chryseis. Then her father, Chryseis, a priest of Apollo, came to our army's ships on the beachhead, hauling a fortune for his daughter's ransom. He displayed Apollo's sacral ribbons on a golden staff and made a formal plea to the entire Greek army, but especially the commanders, Atreus' 2 sons. You could hear the troops murmuring, 'Respect the priest and take the ransom.' But Agamemnon wouldn't hear of it, and dismissed Chryseis with a rough speech. The old man went back angry, and Apollo heard his beloved priest's prayer. He hit the Greeks hard, and the troops were falling over dead, the gods' arrows raining down all through the Greek camp. A prophet told us the arch-destroyer's will, and I demanded the gods be appeased. Agamemnon got angry, stood up, and threatened me, and made good his threat. The high command sent the girl on a fast ship back to Chryseis with gifts for Apollo, and heralds led away my girl, Briseis, whom the army had given to me. Now you have to help me, if you can. Go to Olympus, and call in the debt that Zeus owes you. I remember often hearing you tell in my father's house how you alone managed, of all the immortals, to save Zeus's neck when the other Olympians wanted to bind him. Hera and Poseidon and Pallas Athena, you came and loosened him from his chains, and you lured to Olympus's summit the giant with 100 hands, whom the gods call Briseis, but men call Aegeon, stronger even than his own father Uranus, and he sat hulking in front of cloud-black Zeus, proud of his prowess and scared of all the gods, who were trying to put the son of Cronus in chains. Remind Zeus of this, sit holding his knees, see if he is willing to help the Trojans, hem the Greeks in between the fleet and the sea. Once they start being killed, the Greeks may appreciate Agamemnon for what he is, and the wide-ruling son of Atreus will see what a fool he's been because he did not honor the best of all the fighting Achaeans. And Thetis, Achilles' mother, now weeping herself. "Oh, my poor child, I bore you for sorrow, nursed you for grief. Why? You should be spending your time here by your ships, happily and untroubled by tears, since life is short for you, all too brief. Now you're destined for both an early death and a misery beyond compare. It was for this I gave birth to you in your father's palace, under an evil star. I'll go to snowbound Olympus, and tell all this to the Lord of Lightning. I hope he listens. You stay here, though, beside your ships, and let the Greeks feel your spite. Withdraw completely from the war. Zeus left yesterday for the river Ocean, on his way to feast with the Ethiopians. All the gods went with him. He'll return to Olympus 12 days from now, and I'll go then to his bronze threshold and plead with him. I think I'll persuade him." And she left him there, angry and heartsick at being forced to give up the silken-waisted girl. Meanwhile, Odysseus was putting in at Chryseis with his sacred cargo on board. When they were well within the deep water harbor, they furled the sail and stowed it in the ship's hold, slackened the forestays and lowered the mast, working quickly, then rowed her to a mooring, where they dropped anchor and made the stern cables fast. The crew disembarked on the sea beach, and unloaded the bulls for Apollo the archer. Then Chryseis' daughter stepped off the sea-going vessel, and Odysseus led her to an altar, and placed her in her father's hands, saying, "Chryseis, King Agamemnon has sent me here to return your child, and offer to Phoebus formal sacrifice on behalf of the Greeks. So may we appease Lord Apollo, and may he lift the afflictions he has sent upon us." Chryseis received his daughter tenderly. Moving quickly, they lined the 100 oxen round the massive altar, a glorious offering, washed their hands, and sprinkled on the victims sacrificial barley. On behalf of the Greeks, Chryseis lifted his hands and prayed aloud. "Hear me, Silver Bow, protector of Chryseis, lord of holy Scylla, master of Tenedos. As once before you heard my prayer, did me honor, and smote the Greeks mightily, so now also grant me this prayer. Lift the plague from the Greeks, and save them from death." Thus the old priest, and Apollo heard him. After the prayers and the strewing of barley, they slaughtered and flayed the oxen, jointed the thigh bones, and wrapped them in a layer of fat, with cuts of meat on top. The old man roasted them over charcoal, and doused them with wine. Younger men stood by with 5-tined forks in their hand. When the thigh pieces were charred, and they had tasted the tripe, they cut the rest into strips, skewered it on spits, and roasted it skillfully. When they were done and the feast was ready, feast they did, and no one lacked an equal share. When they had all had enough to eat and drink, the young men topped off mixing bowls with wine, and served it in goblets to all the guests. All day long these young Greeks propitiated the god with dancing, singing to Apollo, a paean as they danced, and the god was pleased. When the sun went down and darkness came on, they went to sleep by the ship's stern cables. Dawn came early, a palmetto of rose, time to make sail for the wide beachhead camp. They set up mast and spread the white canvas, and the following wind, sent by Apollo, boomed in the mainsail. An indigo wave hissed off the bow as the ship surged on, leaving a wake as she held on course through the billows. When they reached the beachhead, they hauled the black ship high on the sand and jammed in the long chocks. Then the crew scattered to their own huts and ships. All this time Achilles, the son of Peleus, in the line of Zeus, nursed his anger. The great runner idle by his fleet's fast hulls, he was not to be seen in council, that arena for glory, nor in combat. He sat tight in camp, consumed with grief, his great heart yearning for the battle cry and war. 12 days went by. Dawn. The gods returned to Olympus, Zeus at their head. Thetis did not forget her son's requests. She rose from the sea and up through the air to the great sky, and found Cronus's wide-seeing son sitting in isolation on the highest peak of the rugged Olympic massif. She settled beside him and touched his knees with her left hand, his beard with her right, and made her plea to the Lord of Sky. Father Zeus, if I have ever helped you in word or deed among the immortals, grant me this prayer. Honor my son, doomed to die young, and yet dishonored by King Agamemnon, who stole his prize, a personal affront. Do justice by him, Lord of Olympus. Give the Trojans the upper hand, until the Greeks grant my son the honor he deserves. Zeus made no reply, but sat a long time, in silence, clouds scudding around him. Thetis held fast to his knees and asked again, "Give me a clear yes or no. Either nod in assent or refuse me. Why should you care if I know how negligible a goddess I am in your eyes?" This provoked a troubled, gloomy response. "This is disastrous. You're going to force me into conflict with Hera. I can just hear her now, cursing me and bawling me out. As it is, she already accuses me of favoring the Trojans. Please go back the way you came. Maybe Hera won't notice. I'll take care of this, and so you can have some peace of mind. I'll say yes to you by nodding my head, the ultimate pledge, unambiguous, irreversible, and absolutely fulfilled. Whatever I say yes to with a nod of my head." And the son of Cronus nodded. Black brows lowered, a glory of hair cascaded down from the Lord's immortal head, and the holy mountain trembled. Their conference over, the two parted. The goddess dove into the deep sea from Olympus's snow glare, and Zeus went to his home. The gods all rose from their seats at their father's entrance. Not one dared watch him enter without standing to greet him. And so the gods entered and took his high seat. But Hera had noticed his private conversation with Thetis, the silver-footed daughter of the old man of the sea, and flew at him with cutting words. Who was that you were scheming with just now? You just love devising secret plots behind my back, don't you? You can't bear to tell me what you're thinking, or you don't dare, never have and never will." The father of gods and men answered, "Hera, don't hope to know all my secret thoughts. It would strain your mind, even though you are my wife. What it is proper to hear, no one, human or divine, will hear before you. But what I wish to conceive apart from the other gods, don't pry into that." And Lady Hera, with her oxen eyes wide, "Oh my, the awesome son of Cronus has spoken. Pry? You know that I never pry, and you always cheerfully volunteer whatever information you please. It's just that I have this feeling, and somehow the silver-footed daughter of the old man of the sea may have won you over. She was sitting beside you up there in the midst, and she did touch your knees, and I'm pretty sure that you agreed to honor Achilles and destroy Greeks by the thousands beside their ships." And Zeus, the master of cloud and storm, "You witch! Your intuitions are always right. But what does it get you? Nothing, except that I like you less than ever. And so you're worse off. If it's as you think it is, it's my business, not yours. So sit down and shut up and do as I say. You see these hands? All the gods on Olympus won't be able to help you if I ever lay them on you." Hera lost her nerve when she heard this. She sat down in silence, fear cramping her heart, and gloom settled over the gods in Zeus's hall. Hephaestus, the master artisan, broke the silence, out of concern for his ivory-armed mother. "This is terrible. It's going to ruin us all. If you two quarrel like this over mortals, it's bound to affect us gods. There'll be no more pleasure in our feasts if we let things turn ugly. Mother, please, I don't have to tell you. You have to be pleasant to our father Zeus, so he won't be angry and ruin our feast. If the Lord of Lightning wants to blast us from our seats, he can. That's how much stronger he is. So apologize to him with silken soft words, and the Olympian in turn will be gracious to us." He whisked up a two-handled cup, offered it to his dear mother, and said to her, "I know it's hard, mother, but you have to endure it. I don't want to see you getting beat up, and me unable to help you. The Olympian can be rough. Once before, when I tried to rescue you, he flipped me up by my foot off our balcony. I fell all day and came down when the sun did, on the island of Lemnos, scarcely alive. The Sintians had to nurse me back to health." By the time he finished, the ivory-armed goddess was smiling at her son. She accepted the cup from him. Then the lame god turned serving boy, siphoning nectar from the mixing bowl and pouring the sweet liquor for all of the gods, who couldn't stop laughing at the sight of Hephaestus hustling through the halls. And so all the day long, until the sun went down, they feasted to their heart's content. Apollo playing beautiful melodies on the lyre, and muses singing responsively in lovely voices. And when the last gleams of sunset had faded, they turned in for the night, each to a house, built by Hephaestus, the renowned master craftsman, the burly blacksmith, with the soul of an artist. And the Lord of Lightning, Olympian Zeus, went to his bed, the bed he always slept in when sweet sleep overcame him. He climbed in and slept, next to golden-throned Hera.